Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the red and white pines from Bonsai Acres are going to get some candle pruning. Welcome in everyone to the passive solar green frame on another rainy day in 2024. We are way ahead of rain for the year, for the month, for the day, probably for the minute these days. Oh my gosh, we had all kinds of rain on Saturday, 2 to 3 inches in my neck of the woods. Yesterday, Father's Day, quick snapshot of me and the kids at the Twins baseball game, 90 degrees and humid. This morning, the storms hit about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's been raining ever since, and it's 55 degrees. You can't mess with Mother Nature. Wow, this has just been an absolute roller coaster. The trees are still happy with all the rainwater. We just got to keep an eye on them. So today we're going to work on a couple of pine trees. We've got the red and the white pine trees from Bonsai Acres. I got the big one in here, barely fitting in here. I don't think I can, nope, I can't twist it or I'm going to probably lose it down to the ground. Oh my gosh, on the turntable. We'll work on those a little bit. We're going to do some pruning of those candles, some branch selection for the future. And another one is in here. We're going to take care of that as well. So we're going to do those today. But before I go on with that, I want to send a big shout out to Sam, the Aussie bloke, and just to say how much I've been thinking about Sam. And Sam returned to the YouTube video world just in the last 24 hours. You can click on the video right up here and take a peek at Sam's work on his tree from down under. A big loss in Sam's life, and Sam, my heart goes out to you, and you know, I have to say the bonsai community on YouTube has been phenomenal for everybody in need whenever they need it, and it's been true too for Sam, I believe. Over 100 comments plus on his YouTube channel since he released his video, and such an amazing supportive community. So I can't thank everybody enough, as I often do. This YouTube community is second to none, and fabulous people working on a passion of theirs. Sam, I hope working on your trees, YouTube videos aside, I hope working on your trees brings you some amount of peace, some amount of healing. And I don't need to say any more. Thinking about you tons. Let's work on a tree and watch what we can do with what we got right now today in the PSGF. So, we're going to start today with the red pine. I've got a couple of red pines here in my big box that we pulled out of the ground. Now, a couple of episodes ago, I showed you at Bonsai Acres how the bottoms of these trees are starting to get a little bit more rough barked, which is really kind of nice. We're going to go out to Bonsai Acres in a couple of days here, and we're going to do the same process out there. It is the end of June, and the white American pine tree, our American style of white pine, and a lot of them in Minnesota, and the red pine. These are both single flush pines. So as in a Japanese maple from Japan, a single flush. So we get one long candle every year, and that's the growth, and that's all we have to work with. No multiple flushes on these two pines. So in June, sometime in June when the candle pushes out, you can do one of a couple of things. And when they're super young and the foliage is not peeled away from that candle yet, you can go ahead and pinch that, or you can cut it. And some people are pinching these right down to the internode, and some are pinching them in half. There's a lot of talk on the internet. I've watched Ryan Neal a lot with his pinching, and he will balance out the tree depending upon where the tree is at in its developmental stage. But he'll make sure that all the candle are similar length. Like right here, this one's 2 inches and this one's 1 3/4. When it was growing earlier, do I make this 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch? Because this one back here is less than an inch. So we've got less than an inch, 2 inches, and 1.5 or so inches. Do we make them all the same? to balance out that tree. Now these are super young red pines. They've been in this box for this year only. They were in the ground for 3 years from that year to a year-old, 2-year-old seedling from a nursery. And so we're going to go ahead and cut these candles out. Now I watched a great video from Eric Schrader over there at Bonsai. Check that out as well. I can put a link down in the description. And that also is he does a great job of pruning up this Japanese pine, Japanese black pine. Now, one of the things that people do when they grow these in the field or in a box like this now is that you're going to keep one sacrificial branch usually to thicken up that trunk big time. You can keep 1 branch, 2 branches, but you're just letting that go. And that's a great example on Eric's tree. He's got a sacrificial branch that's probably bigger than the tree will ever be, by twice as far at least. And it's as thick out here as it is in the middle section. But it's making this trunk so much thicker. And then you'll cut that off in the future and you'll have this amazing trunk on this Japanese black pine. Now, because this is so big and we're inside the PSGF on a rainy day, I really can't spin this thing around too much, so we're going to work on it as it is. And I'm going to experiment today. So I have 2 red pines side by side in a box, same growing conditions, same soil, same water, everything is the same, fertilization. I got 3 tea bags on this one, 3 tea bags on that one. You see how wobbly this is? I'm not quite on my spin table. See if I can fix this a little bit. There we go. Yeah, there we go. We got a little turning. Right about there. That's about it. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and trim some of these back. Now I will keep a sacrificial branch. Now, one of these branches, I know for sure it's probably going to come off. If I can move this guy over here, I can probably turn this a little bit more. Ah, there we go. See, there's room. I even get a whole 360, just barely. I love that. Loving that. Okay. So I've got this thing wired up here like this and over here, over there. You can see the wire comes up here. And that could be a sacrificial branch. This whole branch will be sacrificial because we will keep one of these 2 branches as the main tree. So that's going to stand there as a sacrificial branch. And remind everybody, here's the 2 brand new buds from this spring. That's going to be the future of this tree. So I'm loving that those have survived and are going to do well. So right off the bat, I'm going to keep the sacrificial part of this branch, and that's going to be this tall guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that guy right there. And this is our sacrifice right here. That's going to grow nice and tall and thick, and with the wire on there, I wouldn't even need wire on this part anymore. I could probably trim some of that off, but it's supporting this whole curve right here, so we'll leave it on for the moment. Maybe I'll take it off at the end today. But we have a whole bunch of candles here now. Now, the growth on this is not like super long like out in the field. So when we go out to the trees, go out to the tree farm next time, you'll see again how big the growth is on the trees out there in the ground. We've got like 12 inches plus growth. Here we have 2 inches or less. This back bud back here is a little over 2 inches. So they're all pretty small, and they're probably a little bit more stunted, obviously, because we're in a box, not in the ground. But we are going to cut some of these completely off. Because look at all the back budding we have right in there, everybody. We have 1, 2, 3 back buds right there, and we have these branches right in here. So we're going to cut from 3s down to 2s, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut down some of the branches. So let's get started with that. So this guy right out here, we have 3 branches. We have 1, 2, 3. Now we have a big one over here and a small one over here that splits really nice and close right there, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off right there. So we have this guy right here that would form, if we twisted it, a nice 1 to 2. Plus we've got those back buds right there. This is an old cut. We'll cut that off. And this is just 1 candle, and we don't need it that long. Plus there's a small one next to it. We're going to cut this one off, and we'll leave that small one there for now. This is just a small candle, and we come up here to the top. And this is a long section here, and we've got these 2 branches down here. We're just going to cut that right off. And we'll leave those 2 candles alone. Actually, there's 2 right here. So let's cut this candle down to just a couple of needles. We'll cut this one down to a couple of needles, and we'll let that shoot up from there. So again, if we cut these candles and leave some needles, they are going to go ahead and start to set the buds for the next season. This one has 3 buds on it right now. Let's cut down to 2. So we cut that one completely off. And again, these are so small, I'm just going to leave them alone. So there's our first branch kind of cut up. And we're going to, of course, hope that these become the branch in the future of the trees. We might even have a soft bud right there getting ready to go, like this guy over here. So these are in the whorl. Now this is a 1 branch into 3, so we're going to cut that off. Now we have 1 to 2, plus we have the back buds, and we have this back bud here too, so we are in good shape to just let this grow out, and we'll see where the new buds form for next year, if we even keep this branch. Is the tree going to be this way and then this way, or the tree going to be this way and up here? We don't know yet. And there's a back bud, look at that right there. Right there, again, at the whorl. We'd like one lower down if we can. Here's a good example of 3 to 2, everyone. We talk about going from 3 to 2, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to take this inside branch out here, off. And then we've got these 2 candles that we're going to cut in half. Now this one already splits into 2 back here. So now these 2 candles are the same length, here and here. Balance of the candles, and then a cut candle. Now this one comes up here, and I don't want this tall branch up here, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. Again, we have our sacrificial branch back here. That's going to keep growing tall. We'll let it go. And then this one right here is another 3 to 2. We'll take out the center one this time. And then we're going to go ahead and cut that in half and cut this tip off. This one we're going to cut down in half. These we're just going to let go. We're not going to play with those at all. They're going to keep shooting up. And we have now cut off all of these in half, or I went from 3s to 2s. Tree number 1. All right. Tree number 2 is more compact already. And we're going to keep it compact. And we're going to cut all of these down from 3s to 2. And then we're going to cut the buds, the candles completely down to the internode. And watch what it does for back budding for next year. So, sacrificial branch on this one. Well, if you can see, we've got the trunk going into 3 here, the main trunk, and 2 branches right here. Well, we certainly don't need 2 branches. Also on this one, look down here. This is a new branch really down low. We're going to keep that one and see if we can use that in the future. I don't remember how low I buried these into the ground, into the pot here. So we've got a nice branch down here, really, really super low. So we don't need all of this growth, right? And again, we will cut off. Now here's a back bud. If I cut off this branch right here, we'll cut that whole branch off. Look at that right there. And there's 3. We cut down to 2. You know, because that's a newer shoot, I'm going to leave that one alone. And we're going to go work on the other branches. And this one down here, I'm leaving completely alone. So this might be a sacrificial branch for this guy. And so because I think that's what it's going to be, I'm going to go ahead and cut off that little bud right there. We've got the wire ending here. This is going to be sacrificial. And you know what? We're just going to cut that off and put the energy elsewhere. So this will be sacrificial. All of this curve here. Now it's a fun curve, but it's a really big, huge tree. We could end up keeping it for this branch if we think it's nice. So we'll just leave it there. But again, I'm going to leave all this growth on here now because it's the sacrificial branch. And then we'll go and grab this guy down here. Now, this one right here splits into 3 down here. So I'm going to take this big long one out for the 2 shorter ones to make it more compact. But then look, we have a 1 to 3 down here. So if I make it more compact, I cut that whole branch off, and we've got these 2 right here. And this one goes into 2 right here. Let's just cut that extra off there. And again, let's cut this New Year's growth right there at the internode. We'll cut this growth right here at the internode, and we'll see what this does. And we have this itty bitty back bud right here that may not survive, but there's a back bud on the whorl again. We can cut these bigger branches off if we decide to even keep this branch. Because as you'll notice, we've got 1 branch going into 2 up here, so we have 3. The main trunk, branch, and branch. One of these will come off in the future. But let's keep pruning back. There's a back branch back here, so let's cut this shorter. And let's cut this down to the internode. We're going to cut this down to the internode right here and here. This was split into 2, but we're cutting off those 2. So on this branch that I'm just cutting right now, we've got 1 branch that cuts to 3. So we're going to take this whole thing off in the end anyway, because we have 1, 2 now. And there's a real small one. This one's longer. I cut off the node to shorten this growth. We'll get a back bud back here. This one we'll leave alone, and we'll see what happens. And then up here, we go from 1 to 3 again. And I think I will take the left one off on this one. we're down to 2, and up here we go from 1 to 4. So we're going to take off the 2 big ones. And again, actually in this one, we're going to cut all of them off for pushing the back budding back down on the branch. This is one that almost took off this year. So we might get a back bud back here. And this branch right here, we'll just cut off those 3 candles. So I decandled this entire tree on the parts that we're going to keep. We're going to leave this as the sacrificial. It's really thick, and it could still be part of the tree because of the curve I did put into it. But we're taking the chance that this is going to become a really good branch down the road. These 2 could still be viable, one of the 2. And again, here is a 1 into 3. This one's so young back here, though. We'll let this grow 1 more season, then we'll probably get rid of this one in the favor of these 2. Plus, we'll get some back budding on here. So look how much we cut off on that tree. And so we're going to have everything be pushed back and then eventually cut off the sacrificial branch. And on this one, we cut all the candles that we're keeping in half or so, and we left this one untouched for sacrificial. Again, nice curve to that branch, but it's so high up on the tree. We've got our back buds here. And there we have it. We have tree number 1 trimmed up with all those candles. Now these are the red pines, 2 side by side. Again, completely took the candles off of the branches we're going to keep. Left these pretty much alone for the sacrificial, and the same over here, but we left a little bit more on. So I'll go put this back out on the wet bench, and we'll pull out the next tree. Next up, we have the white pine. Now the white pine has this big fancy curve on that. That also could be sacrificial at some point. We're going to cut these candles down as well. This would probably be a sacrificial branch on this one. We cut here, the center of this tree, last big cut. There are still 3 branches on here. We'll cut that one right off. This back one's growing up and filling that space nice. Now, that back one here is a bar branch we've got left right here. So it's one of those cases where, because of the way the tree is shaped, when you come here, it doesn't even look so bad as a bar branch. But we're going to go ahead and cut these candles on this one in half as well. So I'm going to come down here, come in between the needles, and cut in half. Cut in half. And that one wasn't quite in half. There we go. And this one just cut a little bit shorter. So now I've made these candles all the same size. Cut that one down. Cut the tip off, and the tip off on that one. So this is a white pine. So we've got the 5 needles on here, not just the 3. We're going to cut that one down to size, that one down to size. So we're cutting all these candles basically in half, getting them down to about 1 inch in length. And then we'll go ahead and make our branch selections from there. Trying to cut in between the needles as much as possible. Less browning when you cut some of the tips of pine trees and such. You get the browning effect. So these were much shorter. Some of these not as long as that. And again, these were put in a box this year, so we've already kind of stunted the growth a little bit. So it's fascinating to see. If you go back and look at that last Bonsai Acres episode where I went up to Rush City and then came back and cut the grass, you can see the massive growth on these trees in the ground. They've just put on an absolute ton of growth this year because of all the rain. They're healthy. Okay, so there's the white pine all trimmed up with the candles. We just cut the candles in half, and this is going to promote more back budding, and this is going to just keep this thing in check, a little bit more compact. Now, what are we going to keep on this guy? This tip up here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches on it, right? I cut this robust one off. I think I'll cut this one off coming towards the front, if this is the front. And this back one is super thick back here. Now we have 2. Now they're on top of each other, but this can always be spun and twisted. We don't even know if this branch is going to be long term. We'll cut this bottom one off back here. And we've gone from 1 to 2 back here. So 1 to 2 back here, and here's your taper, everyone. if this branch doesn't stick, this is it right here. It comes from this guy right here. We cut this off and we've got thick to thinner to thinnest right there. So I would have to take away some of the wire right there, and I wonder if I should do that today. But see, this is a pine tree, so it's going to shoot back up, right? But let's go ahead and let's cut this off. I'm going to have to unseparate these and do one at a time, because I don't have my nice pliers here. It's in the garage. 1, 2, there. Now it kind of kept its shape, but look what we're going to do. There we go. Now look at this. We bent this earlier. That should stay there, we hope. And if not, this is growing down anyway. And this one's got 2 buds at the tip. And it's also got this coming from the back side to fill in this tree a little bit. But there's that. We made that move. I'm going to get up on my bench here and cut this back a little tighter. There we go. And cut off this a little tighter. And if you can see, there's a new little back bud right here, but it's right at this internode. We're just going to trim that guy back. There we go. And we don't know what we're going to keep long term with that one. All right. So we have this tree with some funky movement on it. And look at all the back budding right here and here, folks. Back bud, back bud. So these will go away, but not this year. We'll just leave that as a sacrificial branch at the moment. This one right here has this growth back here, so we're going to go ahead and cut this one off. And again, there's a back bud right there. This may not survive. There's either a little one down here, 1, 2 back here, and we got these 2 strong branches. Now, with cutting these, if these set any more buds back further, we're in good shape, and we'll just leave that for now. Now this one curves up. It splits into 2, this splits into 2. We are fine to leave this tree as it is right now. We just trimmed this one up. It's got this funky curve on it. There is another bud down here that doesn't look like it's going to survive. That's a bud point. Maybe we get another one back there with a lot of energy. This is where we made a big chop early in its life. Now we do have a little bit of reverse taper here. It's a little bit skinnier down here than here. So hopefully that will go away in time. It'd be nice if we had some back budding here and down here to get this base a little bit thicker, but we do have a reverse taper on this one, which is unfortunate. So this might be one of those trees where you have to really position to find what the best angle is going to be. But we've cut everything back now, and we've got 3s down to 2s. All the candles have been cut in half or so, leaving about an inch on there. We cut off another couple of branches up here. This will become sacrificial, and this will be the tree in the future. And again, we can bring this one around, and we can figure out which one of these 2 we're going to keep for the design of this tree. And even if it is this one that we keep, or if we keep that one, and this one, we'll cut this branch right off here, because now this is growing off to the right. We have this nice. So even though you have a bar branch, we don't always have to cut it off. However, these pines, these whites, are very notorious for swells around the world. So if we don't cut this down into 2, from this 3 here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We don't cut that other branch off, we're going to get kind of a reverse taper there as well, I fear. So we'll let those grow for 1 more year in the new box, or in the new pot rather. We'll let that shoot out, and we'll see what it does next year for the prunes next year. All right, 3 pines taken care of, 1 in this bonsai pot, 2 in the boxes. We've got some pines from Bonsai Acres taking that June prune of the candles to help to establish where those buds might set for next year on a single flush pine. So exciting work there. That's going to wrap it up on this very gloomy, chilly day compared to yesterday. 90s to 50s right now with rain and clouds. The roller coaster continues, everyone. Hold on. Or if you're the hands-free kind of people, enjoy the ride. A big shout out and thank you again to the YouTube community for reaching out and helping to support our dear friend Sam. Sam, the Aussie bloke. Sam, our hearts and minds are with you and your family. The journey and healing, I hope, is as smooth as absolutely possible for you. So Sam and everyone else, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai. and we'll all see you very, very soon.